Nachman, okay. So we began learning about Eliezer's mission to find a wife for Yitzchak, and how right as soon as he made his prayer to Hashem, Hashem answered him, and Rivka emerges. Or more accurately, even before he finishes praying, Rivka emerges. We want to understand what's so special about his prayers that Hashem answered his prayers right away. Ordinarily, we learned that Hashaleach Marasei Aretz, although Hashem sends his words to the earth, but there is a delay in how things come down. There's a divine flow, and the divine flow descends from world to world, and it doesn't come immediately. So how come Eliezer and also Moshe and Shlomo, they were the three people the Torah says that Hashem answered them immediately? How come their prayers were different? What was unique about their prayers? And among those three, what distinguished Eliezer's prayers and caused his prayers to be answered even before he finished praying? What was so special about his prayers? The Maamar that we're learning is based on other Maamarim, as every Maamar of our Rebbeim always is based on the Maamar of the Rebbeim before. And it's the words of Torah are poor in one place and rich in others. So in order to understand the Maamar of the Rebbe properly, you have to go always to the source. So an interesting teaching the previous Rebbe says in relating this topic. The previous Rebbe talks about how there's divine flow from one world to the next, and how eventually it comes down to this physical world. And the analogy of divine flow to this world is rain. And he says that in order for the rain to come down to the world, very often there is thunder and lightning. And why is there thunder when it rains? So he says because it says in the Gemara, the reason why Hashem created thunder is a person is born with a certain kind of crookedness in their heart. So in order to straighten out the crookedness in their hearts, therefore there is this kind of, there's thunder to straighten out the crookedness. So the thunder is meant to cause yira, to cause fear. And because of that, so therefore when there's a divine flow to the world has to become more of a vessel for the divine flow. And therefore there is there's thunder when it rains to make the world more of a vessel, more of a state of reverence for Hashem, to be able to receive the divine flow. So this is when the divine flow is Hashalech Marasei Aretz, in the first model of divine flow, where things go from one world to the next, and they descend slowly. And every stage of the game, there is a judgment whether or not the divine flow should continue to the world beneath it, and even if it should continue, what way should be manifest in then the world beneath it. And that's the reason we have to daven every day. To daven every day because we want the divine flow to come down to us, not just that it should be reserved for us in the world of Atzilus or something, but it should come down to us in the physical world. The mitzvah of davening is when it's felt epis. The biblical commandment to daven is when you feel you're missing something. Someone was asking me last week about, doesn't Yiddishkeit tell us to aspire not to feel so needy for the physical? And I mentioned last week that the Rebbe says it's possible for a person not to taste a biblical davening their entire life because they feel satisfied. And the point I was trying to make was that the Rebbe says that if you feel what Chassidus tells you about life and the challenge of life, there's a constant struggle between the godly soul and the animal soul, then you feel you need to really turn to Hashem to ask him for help. So you're having a biblical davening every day because you realize that measuring yourself up against where you need to be, you need help to get there. I heard an amazing story about Ramendel Futafas. Ramendel Futafas he's spending Pesach in Israel in 1992. He lived in Kfar Chabad, and Rabbi Vashetsky, after he concluded his Seder, he tells his son, let's go see how Ramendel's doing. Ramendel's already, he's an older man, and they want to go see if he's okay. They come to the home, and Mendel's sitting on the couch after his Seder, and he's, I'm glad you guys came now. I'm glad you guys arrived. He said, why? He said, I need to go to the place where the angels can't go. He needed to say the bracha asher yatsa. I need to go to use the facilities. He just couldn't get up. So Rabbi Shetsky brought his son with him, and he was the one who, thanks to him, we have the story. He tells us, you take one arm, I'll take the other arm, and they try to lift up Mendel. And Mendel was blessed with a very incredible sense of humor. On another occasion, a little off color, but Mendel asked someone to help him go to the restroom, and he's like, all right, we don't need to already. It's okay. It's been taken care of. Anyways, Mendel is being picked up by these two gentlemen, being brought to the restroom, and his wife comes up. And his wife is Eshes Chayil, says, hey, Mendel, I warned you. The doctor said you can't have 4 cups of wine. You can't. The doctor said don't have so much matzah. Don't have so much maror. This is what always happens. You eat this, you can't walk afterwards. You're not able to move. Why didn't you listen to me? I begged you, don't drink the 4 cups of wine. So then Mendel, he mutters to himself, and this boy heard this, and it became engraved in his soul. Mendel said, for 80 years, I've been laughing at the world, and all of a sudden, I should take it seriously. And Mendel was someone who had such mesirish nefesh, such sacrifice for Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs, but he also had this incredible sense of humor. He got the, so to speak, the Eibishter's jokes. The Eibishter's joke. Mendel said another Farbrengen. Mendel was Farbrengen. He had an incredible sense of humor. And in the middle of Farbrengen, he says, what's the biggest joke? What's the best joke? The best joke is us. Why are we the best joke? The Eibishter puts us a soul in a body. And the body, the animal soul, wants only Gashmias. It loves Gashmias. It loves Gashmias so much that we're blind. It's not that we can't see each other. And yet, the Mendel Futafas says, and yet, in the middle of all this, a Yid turns to the Eibishter. That's the biggest joke. That's Hashem. Hashem has, so to speak, a sense of humor. What's a sense of humor? What's his pleasure? What does Hashem want in the creation? He wants a home in the lowest realm. What's the lowest realm? Why the lowest realm? He wants what's a good joke? A good joke is when there's an unexpected surprise. So there's a surprise in the punchline. That's a joke. Joke is a punchline. The Alter Rebbe says that. When you have good music, when you have a good food, it doesn't necessarily bring you out of a problem or a depression. It doesn't snap you out of it. But a joke does. A joke brings you out of where you were, and it puts you in a different place because the joke has no meaning into itself. It's not that there's something pleasurable in the joke. With music, there's pleasure in the music. With the food, there's pleasure in the food. With the joke, there's no pleasure in the joke. The pleasure you have in the joke is in you. You have pleasure. It's about your pleasure. And therefore, when the Alter Rebbe says, therefore, when a person laughs, it makes them feel an inner pleasure, and therefore they're able to leave where they were before and to go somewhere else. These 2 guys are outside a courtroom. They're fighting, and they ruined the joke already, but whatever. They come into the courtroom, and the judge says to them, guys, you don't need me over here. You need to work this out between yourselves. I think you guys should figure this out. You don't need me to educate over here. So Reuven says to the judge, Your Honor, we tried to figure this out by ourselves. And then the police came and arrested us and brought us in over here. So they laughed. And then Reuven says to Shimon, you know what, Shimon, let's work this out. Let's figure this out. The joke brought him out of where he was and opened up, a lot of times the speaker begins his talk with a joke because it opens up the conversation and makes things come together. So the Eibishter puts us in this world and he gives us incredible challenges because the Eibishter, so to speak, his sense of humor is that we should be enveloped by Gashmias and have an Nefesh Abamis, and yet to laugh at the world and not to be into it and not to be into Gashmias. And in the lowest places, in the place which is so incongruous to godliness, in that place we should bring Hashem. Therefore, davening, oh boy, do you need to daven. You need to daven to get the joke. Sometimes we see a catastrophe, we say, hey, the catastrophe, how is this going to happen? How are we going to survive this catastrophe? It's horrible. Then we see this catastrophe brought us the greatest blessing. And sometimes we see something, wow, this is amazing. And Chas Hashem, this amazing thing, it turns out to be the opposite. The Eibishter is running the show, and when Hashem gives us this unexpected outcome, it's part of the goal of Hashem in creation. Hashem is the, if you will, the greatest comedian, because if a joke is an unexpected outcome, so Hashem is the one who puts together two opposites. He puts an Hashem into a body, and Hashem asks Hashem in a body to make a home for Hashem in the lowest realm, out of nowhere, and therefore, yes, we got to do stuff. We got to show up. We got to work. We Hashem puts us in this world. We have a mission here, but you got to be a little more flexible to know where Hashem is sending you, because the whole point is of Hashem putting a soul in the body is for there to be something unexpected. There should be a tachtein, there should be a low realm, there should be a gashmis, there should be physicality. We should be blinded and enveloped by physicality, and yet we should get the joke. We should say, no, out of this gashmistic evelt, out of this physical experience, I'm going to ignore myself. I'm going to push away what I want, and then go for what the Eibishter wants. I'm going to let go of what I want. I'm going to let go of what the animal soul wants, and I'm going to do what Hashem wants. That's Yidach. That's Hashem's home, to let it all go and to get the joke and say, no, dafka over here, specifically over here. And therefore, we need a daven, because everything we see and we feel, our natural feelings, natural thoughts, are the opposite of what Hashem's intent is. This is very in sync also to the Zohar that we're learning about in this Maamar. The Zohar says that it says Rivka arrives. The Zohar asks, it should have said Rivka arrived at the well. Why does it say Rivka left out to the well? Rivka yotzes, Rivka goes out. The Zohar says that Rivka's departure to the well is something that represents how Rivka left the realm of the unholy and she went to the realm of the holy. Rivka brought out, so to speak, a sense of humor in her husband Yitzchak. Yitzchak was a very holy being. There's no fiber in his being that wasn't devoted and holy to Hashem. He wasn't allowed to go to an unholy place. Hashem said, "You're a sacrifice unto God. You can't go to any place unholy." But who is Rivka? Rivka was exactly the opposite. Rivka was from what do we know? Where do we meet Rivka? We meet Rivka in Besul's house, the brother Lavan. She's in the worst possible environment. And yet, who is she? In the middle of this crazy environment, this hostile environment, she is a rose among thorns, the Torah says. And therefore, the Torah says about Yitzchak, Yitzchak is intimate with his wife. The Torah describes this as Yitzchak is happy and playing. Why did the Torah do that? Because the whole idea of the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka is the marriage of Hashem's two opposing desires in the creation of the world. He wants it to be something Rivka. Is that the word? Nachman, you got the door? He wants it to be a concealment of godliness. He wants it to be something he wants it to be the thorns there. He wants there to be something that hides Hashem's presence. And yet, Rivka yotzes. Rivka goes out of that whole realm, and she comes to Yitzchak. Who is Yitzchak? Yitzchak represents the ultimate purity and holiness. That's the joke of the world. And therefore, what happens? What happens as a result of this shidduch really is about Bias and Mashiach. The marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka is Hashem's purpose in creation. That in the Gashmis and the physicality of the world, there should be Yitzchak. So to speak, Yitzchak got his sense of humor from Rivka. Yitzchak, whose total pure holiness, he is able to carve out of this physical world a space for Hashem in merit of his wife Rivka, who was coming from that world. So when it says in the Torah that Rivka left and she came to Yitzchak, it's not just a story, it's the story of our lives. And therefore, only about this does the Torah say that Eliezer was answered even before he finished praying. What does this mean? Let's do inside a little bit, and we'll Mitzvah Shem understand it a little better after we finish. Let's go to page Shin Nun Beis. The way the divine flow descends depends upon the way you daven. What this means is the is chesed is chesed. There are two kinds of divine kindness. Is chesed is social chesed apisei shtalshul chesed in chesed yivana. There is the chesed of the midas of Atzilus, the chesed which flows according to the order of the spiritual cosmos. And concerning this, the Torah says the world is built on kindness. When the kindness of Hashem flows according to the regular order, then it's delayed. And there's a chesed of arich, there's a chesed of the infinite light of Hashem, what's called, so to speak, the long face. The midas of Atzilus is called the Ze'er Anpin, the small face. It means the way godliness is contracted. And there's Arech Anpin, which is literally means the long face, the way Hashem's kindness is infinite, beyond the spiritual cosmos. An even higher source for kindness is the chesed of Atik. When kindness descends from this place, it descends very swiftly, without any delay, without any interruption. In our lives, arich means desire, and atik means pleasure. You could give kindness because it makes sense to be kind. You could give kindness because it's geschmack to be kind, because you have a pleasure in being kind, because you really want to be kind. When it comes from something that's deeper and inside of you, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more actionable. You have a geschmack, you want to do something to help somebody, you have a geschmack in helping this person, you're not going to forget about it, and you're going to do it very quickly. If it's not so geschmack, just it's a right thing to do, like let's say paying your dues to something that you're supposed to do as a member of a community or whatever, so that, okay, it makes sense, you should do that one time. But if some person, you're able to help them directly, you have a geschmack in helping them, you see where your money is going, you right away do it because you see the geschmack in it. There's no delay. No, Reb Zev, that was not a hint to anyone paying their synagogue dues. Okay, moving right along. When the kindness emanates from the chesed of Atik, and even higher than Atik, then where does it go? It goes to this physical world specifically, just like by us. When we have a geschmack on something, it goes right away. It's a physical expression. So too, when there's a chesed coming from Hashem's pleasure, it hits the physical world. For two reasons, as we'll see in a second. It says about mitzvahs that all mitzvahs have a relationship to God's essence. It's specifically by performing a mitzvah physically that we connect with the giver of all mitzvahs. This is the essence of Hashem Mamish. He is the one who sanctified us with his commandments, and he is the one who commanded us. So when you do a mitzvah physically, you're touching, you're connecting, or language of the Alter Rebbe and Tanya in chapter 4, you're hugging Hashem. And by doing a mitzvah, which is the will of Hashem, Hashem and his will are one. You become completely one with God's essence. How do you become one with God's essence? By doing a physical mitzvah. Okay, so a mitzvah is associated with God's essence, a physical mitzvah. In a similar way, when something, so to speak, is connected to God's essence, there's a physical expression of it. Hashem's desire is for this lowest world, the lowest realm, and therefore there's an expression of God's essence in this world, as we discussed many times, that the reason we feel like we have no source, we feel like we're just, in the language of Popeye, I am what I am, that's all I am. Why do we feel that way? It's because we come from God's essence who has no source. Therefore, we feel like we're here by ourselves. So it's dafka, specifically by a mitzvah, which is done in a physical act that connects with God's essence. And also because Hashem invested his essence in a mitzvah. So when a prayer touches the Hashem himself, there's a physical expression. It has an immediate, fast, and hard expression physically. when a prayer touches the infinite light of Hashem, which is beyond the entire spiritual cosmos, then the divine flow is immediate without any delay whatsoever. However, it's known that the speed in the divine flow is associated with Gevura. It says he was happy like an athlete to run the track. We say this every Shabbos, right after Haidu. He was happy like an athlete to run the track. So the word athlete in Hebrew is not athlete, it's Gibor. Gibor means the mighty one. Mighty in Hebrew is associated with the power of Gevura, which Kabbalistically usually refers to the power of reservation, of holding back. Gevura, the word in Hebrew for strength, is associated in Kabbalah with the idea of holding back something. So here's a funny thing. We find that Yitzchak, who is associated with Gevura, with reservation, with holding back, with rejection, he is the one who is blessed by God with a multitude of blessings. He is the one who issues blessings that were not said by anybody else in history, only by Yitzchak. So why is it that Yitzchak is the one that issues these incredible blessings that were never said by anybody else, not by Moshe, not by Yaakov, as the Alter Rebbe explains the Maamar about the Tkiyas of Rosh Hashanah? The reason for this is precisely because it's Gevura. Why? Why does rejection cause this incredible divine flow? Imagine this guy, an addict, comes to you and asks you for $1. You don't have to imagine over here in Los Angeles. It happens all the time, right? So there is two kinds of responses you could have. There's the chesed response. The chesed response is, I want to be kind. I want to be kind. I want to give $1 because I want to be kind. There's a Gevura response. I'm going to give him $1. He's going to use it for drugs. I'm not going to, in fact, you're angry. I don't want to give him $1. No way, not to you. You're going to waste it. But then if you go a little deeper in the Gevura, and you sweeten the Gevura, sweetening the Gevura means that you say to yourself, so this guy is hopeless forever? He can never be helped? And you answer, no, it's not. He can't be helped. He could be helped when he wants to get help. Well, maybe he wants to get help. How do you know? Maybe he's ready to get help. Maybe he's hit rock bottom. How would you know if this guy isn't about to commit suicide because he just tried his last request in the world to ask for help from somebody and you were the guy? You don't know. So what do? You have Rahmanis for a second and you say, let me figure this out. And you take the guy and you put him into you sit him down in your car, and he has never sat in such an incredible Tesla like you have, and he's sitting there and he's smelling up your Tesla maybe, but you sit down and you talk to him, say, what's going on? And the guy opens up to you and he tells you how horrible his life is, how terrible his life is, and he really wants to get help. And you say to him, listen, if you ever decide to go to a rehab, I'm going to help you go to rehab. Now, this is the guy you didn't want to give $1 to, and now you're paying $20,000 for him to go to rehab. What happened? What happened is that you sweetened the Gevura. Your Gevura, which was a force of rejection, became a force of abundance. Your Gevura, which says, I don't want to help him because he is unhelpable, but because he's just going to waste it, you reached into yourself and you said, but if he could be helped, how could he be helped? And you ask, you force yourself to ask the question, how can I help him? That's called, usually, Gevura Shebachesed means something else, but in this Maamar, that's what the Rebbe defines Gevura Shebachesed, taking the Gevura and sweetening it, and making the Gevura into Chesed. It's sort of like using your Gevura to power your Achmanis. You're analyzing the person and saying, well, what does this guy need, and how can I help him? So Yitzchak is Gevura, and therefore, because he's Gevura, it's not just a regular divine flow that we learned about early in the Maamar, that God sends his blessing to the earth in this slow kind of flow, and it goes from level to level, and there's shtalshalos, and it descends, and it's delayed. From Yitzchak comes the other kind of hashpa, ad meheda yoretz vari. There's a very fast divine flow coming from Gevura. So how do we tap into that? So in the Maamar, the Rebbe is basing this Maamar on. Am I off camera? No, I'm still on camera. If someone's asking, I'm off camera. I'm on camera. I think. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. So how do we tap into this? Way to tap into this is we need to have gvura in ourselves. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, chapter 49. This chapter 49 is a very powerful chapter. Chapter 49, the Alter Rebbe speaks about how Hashem had such gvura to create the world. How Hashem had all these worlds and angels, and as we say every day in the Shema, and before the Shema, the blessing before the Shema, the blessings before the Shema, we talk about the incredible angels Hashem has in heaven. How Hashem has such pure, holy beings that constantly sing to Him and devoted to Him. And then we, after describing these incredible angels, what do we finish off with? Avas Eilam Avtanu. Hashem, you have loved us a love of the world. What's the love Hashem has for us? He loves us because of the oilam, because of the word world. The word world means concealment, because He put us in a world where there is a concealment for godliness, and yet we reach out to Him, even though there's such a concealment. That's why Hashem has such an incredible love for us. And therefore Hashem contracted Himself. He hid His light in order to create the experience of a being that is in such a state of confusion and enveloped by darkness. That's why Hashem made He put aside all the angels and all the souls and all the worlds to get to that geschmack of having avas oil ma'avtanu. He loves us because of the concealment. So the Alter Rebbe says over there in chapter 49 that just like Hashem has such gvura, just like Hashem did such a act of gvura, holding back His light because He loves us. He loves us here in this world. So too the Alter Rebbe says a person has to have gvura in himself. What's gvura in yourself mean? To completely push aside all the things that we like and we used to, we want, and ourselves, to push aside all the things that we want for the sake of Hashem. So there are prayers that reach, prayers, Hashem promises prayers are answered. But the unique prayer of Eliezer, why was it answered immediately? Because there was some gvura in it. It was a selfless prayer. What was Eliezer asking for? He was asking Hashem, help my mission be fulfilled. It wasn't about, he had his own interests. He wanted his daughter to marry Yitzchak. He pushed everything aside and he poured himself out. Eibusha, help this mission happen. And therefore the Friedrich Rebbe says in the Maamar, the Rebbe quotes from Geshem Nedavis, Hashem sent a rain of magnanimity. Magnanimity means not just that you give, but you give and you give and you give and you give and you go beyond yourself and you give more. And this idea of pouring yourself over to the Eibush with Mesiras Nefesh, that is what elicited this response in heaven that Hashem poured the brachas down without limitation. The gvura of Eliezer and the gvura of what the mission was for Yitzchak, who was about gvura, about creating godliness in a place of concealment through us devoting ourselves to Hashem despite whatever's around us. That prayer, which was said with Mesiras Nefesh, with devotion to Hashem, that's what, so to speak, touched by the Eibishter, his essence, and therefore not only was it answered immediately, Avram's, Moshe Rabbeinu's prayers also touched the infinite light of Hashem, and Shlomo Melech's prayers also touched the infinite light of Hashem. But here there was gvura, because there was gvura. Since this was about a act of Mesiras Nefesh, there is sacrifice and devotion. Therefore, caused by Hashem, a geshem, of a rain of magnanimity, without the thunder, without the lightning, without the concealment. Just a pure flow of rain immediately, and then Rivka comes out even before he finishes speaking. The Rebbe says that davening is supposed to carry over to your learning in the way the day goes. And you have to pray to Hashem this way, with devotion to Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov students, they would write sometimes a will and testament before they began davening. They weren't sure they would come back. I don't think we have to worry about that. But davening is about you're giving yourself over to Hashem, that you present yourself, hineni. You're davening for Hashem, what Hashem wants, and you're asking that you should be successful because your success is Hashem's success, right? So that's the tefillas nedavis that elicits l'mayla, cause from Hashem to send the bracha down immediately, swiftly. And the main thing is the bracha that we need right now, as the Rebbe quotes in the Maamar, when a Jew sighs, even though it's bagashmius, it's considered by Hashem a great tshuva. The Jew sighs, he needs the end of the galus. He needs Hashem to open the curtains and bring Mashiach. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'rach. We need it to happen now. Any questions, comments, criticism? A great day, Rebbe, great day, David, great day, Dr. Bressman, great day, Jonathan, great day,